This is another video for Spartan Society to the Battle of Leuctra, and we're looking at the economy and focusing on economic exchange. If we have a look at the syllabus here, you can see it's the last dot point in the syllabus, and it says economic exchange, which refers to the use of currency and also trading and bartering of other goods. So the dot point breaks down to the use of iron bars, which is what the Spartiates were supposedly using as their currency, and also the fact that the Spartiates are involved in trade is the second part of this dot point. So if we start with iron bars here, the other name for iron bars that we use is plenors, which is the name for the specific iron bars that the Spartiates were supposed to have used as their currency. And this is from Plutarch. He's referring to the laws of Lycurgus. In the first place, he withdrew all gold and silver money from currency and ordained the use of iron money only. That's the plenors. Then, to a great weight and mass of this, he gave a trifling value, so that 10 minas worth required a large storeroom in the house and a yoke of cattle to transport it. So, according to Plutarch, who's writing a long time after the events, the whole point of it was to make it very difficult to be involved in any kind of trade or purchasing or economic transactions for the Spartiates, so that they would focus solely on the military. If we do have some examples of these iron bars, plenors, as you can see here, so they're long, straight rods of iron, and they are quite unwieldy. If you have a look at this image here, it shows you roughly what size it would be in contrast to a human hand. They would have been quite heavy and quite unwieldy, and obviously not meant to be used for trade. However, Figueroa says here, in reality, Spartans reached valuations of material goods mainly in terms of silver coins, and in fact we have lots of coinage from lots of different time periods throughout Sparta, so we do know that the Spartiates had money, not just these iron bars. And Figueroa goes on to say it was probably similar to a black economy involving actions shielded from government scrutiny. So in other words, even though the government said they couldn't have coinage, they still did have coinage. And we do know that they were intended to provide money to the Syssitia as well. That was part of their monthly quota that needed to be provided to the Syssitia. So despite the fact that these iron bars, we know they existed, whether they completely dominated all of the currency or whether they were an aspect or an ideal, we don't know. Finally, trade. Trade is the next part of that dot point, and we lack a lot of organic evidence for trade. So, it's been thousands of years, so obviously anything organic has been well and truly disappeared. So we only have left really pottery. That's really all we have left as evidence for trade. We do know that Lycurgus was supposed to have banned trade for the Spartiates, but we also know that the Spartiates needed trade goods to come into their land as well, and that's where really the perioeci came in. We don't know how much the perioeci were involved in trade in comparison to the Spartiates. One would imagine that earlier in the piece, earlier in the time period prior to Lycurgus, yes, the Spartiates would have been involved heavily in trade, and then that would have gradually subsided with the perioeci taking over more ownership over the trade in the latter part of the Spartan time period. We do have examples of things like ivory being imported from Syria. We know that Samnos, which was an island Greek city-state, they were a commercial ally for Sparta and were a connection for them to places like North Africa, Egypt and Asia Minor, and we know that they facilitated trade between Sparta and these places, probably through the perioeci again. But we also know that in the 5th century BC, trade does seem to decline quite significantly. But we do have some examples of some trade. For example, we have these Laconian pottery found in cargo of a shipwreck found near the islands of Italy. So that would suggest that there was some trade going on, and there's some more examples that you need to learn in the iBook. So it's important to remember that iron bars, yes, they existed, but were they, we can't sort of fall into that trap of the generalization of saying, yes, that was the only way that they exchanged or had a currency. And trade, we need to know that we're not completely sure whether it was only the perioeci who traded, but most likely they would have dominated trade, particularly in that latter part, once the Lycurgan reforms had taken effect.